All right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome. I see some people rolling into the room, the virtual room now. So let's get this thing going. And welcome. Yeah, this is our May Town Hall meeting. I'm Bill Sheridan. I'm the MACPA's Chief Communications Officer, filling in for Rebecca Olson today. So glad to be here. Glad that you're here. We've got, I think Dee said 374 or so people registered to be with us today in our virtual room. So and we got a good one for you today. So let's get to it, shall we? By now, y'all know the drill, but just in case, scan that QR code, if you could, to go to our Conferences IO polls, looking for your input on a few things this morning. But I'll give you a second here to scan that code. And if you miss it for any reason, if you go into the chat, Dee's got a direct link to get to those polls. I'm going to switch over to our polling results here and see what we got. We always like to start with good news, right? Great way to kick off any meeting, gets things rolling on the right note. So tell us what's good in your life these days, what's bringing you joy, making you smile, driving your business forward. Just what's good in general going on right now. Retiring September 1st, that is good news. Boy, I've gotten to the point now in my career where it's like, it's not the end of the world yet, but you can see it from here type of thing. So I envy you for that. And congratulations on that. Watching from Lake Tahoe, you got a better view than me, I would imagine. The sun is out. Yes, it is. Somebody else is already retired. A vacation coming up. Boy, I'll tell you what mine was. I was thinking about this earlier. I don't know how it happened, but it just kind of snuck up on me. I realized a couple of days ago that next week is Memorial Day weekend already. I don't know how that happened, but summer's here, folks. That's if you're into summer, that's a good thing, right? And it's already here. I'm physically coming to you from my home here in St. Louis, Missouri, where it is the forecast to be 95 degrees today. So yeah, summer is already here. All right, good stuff. Thank you for all of that. Let's see what else is going on here. Where do you work? We always like to get a quick flavor of let's see, where are we? There we go. Let me get back there. All right. Who's in the room and what they do in the profession. Right now, it looks like neck and neck between, it looks like I don't know what is going on with this IO. It keeps toggling back and forth. I'm not hitting anything, I promise you. But anyway, public accounting and retired is right up there as well. So yeah, a good flavor throughout the profession as always for these town hall meetings. Let's see if I can get back to, I don't know what is going on with these. It's like there's a ghost in the room that's toggling these for me. I'm not sure what is happening, but position at work. Again, senior management seems to be, as always, the folks who are make up the majority of the people here. I'm not really sure what's going on with these polls, folks. Weird stuff. Well, I'll tell you what we're going to do. I'm going to include a link to the polling results in the email that we send to you post session. So you can see all the results there. I don't know, the poltergeists are out today. Let me try this one more time and see if we can kind of stay where we are. All right, senior management managers, yep. Retirement, and there they go again. So, all right, enough with the polls. We'll send you that link afterwards, and you can take a look at your leisure at what everyone was saying there. But I appreciate you giving your insights. There's also some last couple of questions we always like to ask. What's on your mind? What are some of the big issues that you guys are dealing with? Hope you take some time to fill that out as well, because it's not only interesting for us, but we always like to use that to kind of develop topics for future town halls. We certainly want to present content that is meaningful to you. So take some time to do that for us as well, if you would. All right, we're going to move on. We have a sponsor for today's town hall. Our partners at Avantex have graciously stepped up to sponsor today's meeting. And with us from Avantex today is Samantha Dunn. Samantha is their Regional Director of Business Development. She's got a few quick words for us. So Samantha, thanks very much for being here with us today. Take it away.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I met some of you last year in Ocean City, which is an awesome event. I was telling Dee and the team earlier, we work with a lot of different CPA groups This one is one of the most active and definitely the most fun. I gotta say, Ocean City must rival AICPA's Engage Conference. And the Engage Conference would be better if it was shorter. I want to make that an argument. I think holding us hostage in Vegas for a week is cruel and unusual. So Avantax, some of you might have known us in past iterations. We've evolved a lot. You might have known us back in the old days as HD Vest. We were a coming together of HD Vest, First Global, and HKFS, all firms that believe in adding wealth management and financial planning to accounting practices. And that can mean a lot of different things depending on your size, shape, color, flavor. For me, I like chocolate or vanilla. Give me two choices and I can pick. So this is tough because we really want to make sure we've got a la carte options to meet everyone where they are, just to make it possible to add the services. We think it makes clients infinitely more sticky. I hate to use the term sticky, but it does. It keeps clients around. You're a one-stop shop. If nothing else, it prevents them from going to Joe Schmo advisor up the road who might not give the best advice or best service the way that you would take care of your clients. And that's why we love working with folks in accounting, because you don't need a special rule to tell you that you're a fiduciary and you should put clients' best interests first. That's just what you do and who you are. So we help folks who want to DIY it, maybe bring it in practice. You want to learn how to do financial planning. You want to learn how to do investment management. Most people don't. They want to outsource the management. You know, maybe you have us handle the modeling and you just kind of control the client relationship. That's definitely an option. Something we've seen most firms opting to do these days. One, we sponsor the PFS program. We partner with AICPA to help folks who want to get their personal financial specialist designation. It's a 2-day event. We have a few around the country. If anyone's interested, you'll see my phone number there. Just let me know. We'd love to get you in. It's a 2-day event and you walk out with a bunch of CPE and that designation, those letters after your name. Which is actually a way to then be able to refer wealth management business if you want that kind of wall of separation between your practice, but you do want clients to be taken care of in that way. You can refer to one of our advisors. You'll have your pick of the litter as far as who you're comfortable with, who's local, and then who you relate to and are comfortable with your clients meeting with them. And then you can share in those revenues. So everything from do it all yourself, outsource pieces and parts to us, refer to an advisor, maybe like you already do, but to someone who's able to make sure that you're properly compensated for the work that you do. Because a lot of times I'd argue, you're the ones coming up with the ideas. You know what the tax smart thing is to do. If I'm just implementing, you deserve that revenue. So thank you for having us. Thanks for letting us be here. Really excited for this session. Thanks, fellas.
Thanks so much, Samantha. Thanks for being here. Avantax have been great partners of ours for a while now, and we certainly appreciate all the support you've given us. So thanks again to Samantha and Avantax. A few quick notes here to pass along before we get to the topic at hand, and which I'm not sure I told you. Our guest today is Elena Folks. She's Maryland's taxpayer advocate. Like I said, good meeting on tap today. But first, a couple of quick notes. This happened yesterday, folks, and it's the reason that I'm here with you today instead of Rebecca. Rebecca is in DC this week to celebrate with Lexi Kessler, who's a partner at Aprio and a former chair of the MACPA's board of directors. Lexi was installed yesterday as chair of the AICPA's board of directors for the next year. She's also chairing the Association of International Certified Professional Accountants for the next year. And she's just the third Marylander to serve in those roles, following in the footsteps of Kimberly Ellison Taylor and Anoop Mehta. And really, she's no stranger to the national stage. For the past year, she's been serving as chair of the National Pipeline Advisory Group, very important role there as they search for solutions to our workforce challenges. And we obviously at the MACPA just couldn't be prouder. And the AICPA got a good one here as chair for the next year. And we're looking forward. We're working with Lexi to the next year as she's got just a ton of energy and passion for the profession. And she's going to take that to the highest levels of the profession for the next year. So many congratulations to Lexi. Check out our blog for more details about her swearing in ceremony yesterday in DC. From all indications, it was a great time. Moving on, we mentioned Lexi's work on the profession's pipeline issues. Speaking of which, this came down yesterday as well. Of course, there's been a lot of movement on our talent challenges and finding new pathways to licensure. Yesterday, the AICPA and NASBA announced that they've approved expanding accountancy's model legislation to include an additional path to CPA licensure. That pathway requires a bachelor's degree, including accounting concentration, plus 2 years of experience and passage of the exam. That additional path will be included in an amended Uniform Accountancy Act to be released early this summer. Also, individual states will need to formally enact legislation or adopt rules or regulations, depending on the state, before candidates can pursue that path. To date, 14 states have done that. And Maryland is definitely moving in this direction as well. You may recall this past year at during the General Assembly session in Annapolis, the MACPA supported a bill that protects CPA mobility here in Maryland. It allows CPAs to who hold a license in good standing in another state to temporarily practice in Maryland, even if there are differences in those educational requirements. And that protects mobility here, removes unnecessary barriers, just generally makes it easier for CPAs to meet clients' needs across state lines and for firms to operate more efficiently. So all that's going on in Maryland as well. And it kind of sets up our next priority, which is to support the Maryland Board of Public Accountancy in advancing a plan to create an additional pathway right here in Maryland as well. We're expecting that to happen potentially as early as 2026 next year. So obviously more to come on all this. Stay tuned. We'll be keeping you posted on what's happening there. And finally, last bit of news before we get on to the main business at hand, just a quick note. The MACPA is continuing to talk with the Maryland Comptroller's Office to seek guidance from them about our new tax on IT and data services, which is part of the budget that was passed during the General Assembly session. As you know, that budget includes $1.6 billion in new revenue, and that includes about $500 million that's expected to be collected from a new 3% sales tax on IT and data services. That's effective date for that is July 1. That's July 1 of this year. So yeah, we're looking for a little bit of guidance from the Comptroller's Office about what happens next, what all this looks like going forward. Our own Mary Beth Halpern posted a notice in our tax community earlier this week that says we're urging the Comptroller's Office to kind of post some basic guidance and answers on its website as soon as possible. The rulemaking, the formal rulemaking process is underway for this tax, but formal regulations won't be submitted until I think next week, and the scheduled publication date of those is in June, late June. So the MACPA met with Comptroller Learman's team on Monday and kind of emphasized to them, that the business community is really hoping to get some guidance sooner rather than later. Many are already behind in configuring their compliance systems ahead of the July 1 effective date. And so they're looking for some guidance, and hopefully we'll be able to get some in fairly short order. So you'll be hearing more about that as time goes on as well. We'll keep posting updates in our tax community. Speaking of that tax community, if you haven't joined our virtual tax community, please do so. We post updates on critical issues like this in that community first. So if you want the latest at the earliest possible time to get it, you'll find it there. So join that tax community if you haven't done so already. Okay, speaking of taxes, that brings us to today's topic at hand. We're gonna spend some time today learning about Maryland's Office of the Taxpayer Advocate and Maryland's Taxpayer Bill of Rights, and we're honored to have with us today none other than Maryland's Taxpayer Advocate. Elena Folks is with us, and joining Elena to moderate the conversation is Jeff Lawson. Some of you may know Jeff. He's Vice President of Tax and Administration at Atapco Properties and also an active member and volunteer with the MACPA's State Tax Committee. Certainly a way better person to moderate this conversation than me. So I'm going to have Jeff kind of serve in that role as well. So Elena, Jeff, thank you so much for joining us today. Elena, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you. So I'm going to pull up my slides.
And I will stop sharing here so you can start.
Very good. Alrighty, so thank you again. Good afternoon to everybody who is on the call. It is just such a pleasure to be able to connect with all of you here today. My name is Elena Folks, and I am the Director of the Office of the Taxpayer Advocate at the Maryland Comptroller. So by way of background, I've been in this role since January, and before coming to the comptroller, I served as the first taxpayer advocate in the District of Columbia before being promoted to Assistant Director of Operations. And before working at the DC Office of Tax and Revenue, I also taught at the University of Baltimore School of Law. I am a Maryland licensed attorney with a JD and an LLM in taxation, and I also have a master's degree in public policy. And I've been working in tax law and administration for about 15 years. So today I wanted to chat a little bit about the new Office of the Taxpayer Advocate, or I guess the newly imagined Office of the Taxpayer Advocate, which is taking over the role that the Ombudsman previously served. So the Ombudsman is being phased out, no longer exists, and now we have the Office of the Taxpayer Advocate. And as many of you know on this call, the Office of the Taxpayer Advocate was championed by our comptroller, Brooke Learman, and legislation was passed by the General Assembly to create the office in 2023. So I do get a lot of questions about, what is the Office of the Taxpayer Advocate? What is it? How is it different than the Ombudsman's office? And really, in a nutshell, the Maryland Comptroller established the Office of the Taxpayer Advocate within the Comptroller's office. And our job is just to serve as the voice of Maryland taxpayers agency-wide. We're here to resolve complex tax issues and compile data to make sure that we're identifying challenges, making strategic recommendations, and solving those systemic challenges that really just persist within the tax system in order to make sure that it's a better system for everybody involved. Overall, I get the question probably on a daily basis, what can the Office of the Taxpayer Advocate help with? And the list is short, but it's not necessarily just limited to what you see on the screen. We offer guidance and support. So OTA can offer taxpayers with guidance and support regarding policies, processes, procedures, information on how to efficiently resolve problems. So, if somebody is having trouble figuring out technology or they don't know how something works, we can jump in and give them some background information. We also work to proactively identify and recommend solutions for systemic challenges. So if somebody has a problem that really is it's not necessarily something that's specific to them, but something that's impacting many taxpayers all at once, we can get involved. And the reason that we're the right spot for that is that we can take it, we can work cross-divisionally across all of the divisions and units within the comptroller. We can go to the executive team, we can work with IT and try to do some brainstorming. And then we can also work directly with taxpayers. So if there is a sticky issue, people have tried to go through the ordinary channels and it's just not working, we do have the ability to work one-on-one with taxpayers. And then we also do taxpayer rights advocacy, where OTA will promote the comptroller's Taxpayer Bill of Rights to ensure that taxpayers know their rights as taxpayers. Which brings us to my favorite topic to talk about, which is the Taxpayer Bill of Rights. And I think a lot of you probably have seen over the many years the Taxpayer Bill of Rights that was on the comptroller's website. And I am really excited to share with you that these have been updated. So now we have a newly updated and modernized Taxpayer Bill of Rights. But before getting into the specifics of what those are, I want to just talk a little bit about what a taxpayer rights charter really is meant to be. A taxpayer rights charter isn't creating new rights or creating new causes of action for someone to take the comptroller to court. It's really just pulling together the stuff that should already exist in the basic fundamental fairness doctrines with due process and other federal and state laws and regulations to make sure that people know what rights they have across the agency. It collects everything and puts it into a nice, simplified list. And that way people have that information in a simple, straightforward way. And they really know what they should be able to expect from their government and the administration of taxes, and they have the ability to hold their government accountable for it. So this is the list that we've come up with as the newly updated Maryland Taxpayer Bill of Rights, which is the right to accurate and accessible information, the right to transparency and simplification, the right to service and assistance, the right to privacy and security, the right to pay no more than the correct amount of tax, the right to challenge a comptroller decision, the the right to representation and advocacy, the right to finality, the right to feedback and accountability, and the right to a fair and just tax system. So, and I did want to just mention briefly that that the slides have been shared with the MACPA, so those would be available for people as well. So I can just run through these. If I run through them kind of quickly, just know that you'll have access to the slides. So as far as the right to, accurate and accessible information, I think people, they want to make sure that the information that they're getting is timely, is clear, is accurate. And that includes the notices that taxpayers are getting, the information that should be available on our website. We want to make sure that the comptroller provides information that is available in multiple formats, including digital, not digital, printed, multilingual, and then also information through community outreach. And this makes sure that we are, serving our taxpayers who may not be native English speakers, who may have disabilities, and who may need something specific as far as visual impairment or being hard of hearing. Because at the end of the day, we want to make sure that the Maryland Comptroller's information is correct, is relevant, is received timely, but that also meets everybody's needs. With regard to the right to transparency and simplification, the Comptroller has been working over the years to do a plain language initiative. And really that speaks to the fact that taxpayers have the right to understand how their tax liabilities are calculated, to get the clear explanations of tax laws, regulations, and decisions. And so we're in the process, and we are committed to simplifying the tax forms, making the processes and instructions in plain language and understandable, and then also just providing tools that ensure that there is simplified, understandable guidance that is widely available to the public. The right to service and assistance. Taxpayers have the right to prompt, respectful, and professional service. So as Maryland is providing a blend of high quality digital tools and traditional support options, we're also ensuring equitable access to all taxpayers. So that means that there might be some folks that want, to go online at 4 a.m. and pull something up on the website, but there might also be people that really just want to walk into a branch office and talk to a human being face to face. They also are entitled to assistance with their tax returns and to get tax return preparation assistance at a branch office, which we have branch offices located throughout the state. And, I thought that this was interesting when we talked about it as we were creating this document. Taxpayers have the right to assistance from a human representative who can explain, review, and adjust decisions as needed. And the reason it's worded like that is, we're in this age of digitization and modernization. And, sometimes people just want to talk to a person who they can interface with, who they can talk to, whether that is on the phone or whether that is in person. Taxpayers have the right to privacy and security. We're all familiar with, the requirements that the IRS has for security and confidentiality of taxpayer information. And, taxpayers have the right to expect that we're going to uphold the highest standards of data privacy and security. We're going to make sure that their personal and financial information is protected in compliance with state and federal laws. And people have the right to know how their data is used. How are we sharing their data that we're collecting online? And that information is actually available on our website now. And, further, taxpayers shouldn't be subject to audits and data requests that are more intrusive than necessary. So we're not here to go, on a fishing expedition. We are here to ask you for the specific information that should be relevant to the request that we've made. The next one is the right to pay no more than the correct amount of tax, which seems obvious, but at the same time, we want to make sure that taxpayers understand that they have the right to pay only what they legally owe. And so for that, we are committed to making sure that our calculations are accurate, that our assessments are fair, that we correct problems and errors promptly, even if that is an error that comes about because of a technical issue or something with an automated system. So regardless of where that error is coming up or being created, we will fix it. And we are committed to making sure that those calculations are correct. The right to challenge a comptroller decision. Taxpayers have the right to a fair, timely, and impartial resolution of any dispute, with access to streamlined and transparent review process consistent with Maryland law. So even if they are requesting internal review of a tax dispute, and if they're not satisfied with the final decision, many cases, taxpayers have the right to appeal to tax court. And so if there is an instance where no appeal to tax court is available, they may have the right to request that comptroller correct an error in the assessment anyway. And really, this speaks to the process that we've got set up with our informal appeals through hearings and appeals, and also, just making sure that we're reiterating that that the Maryland comptroller will correct any tax errors that are present on the accounts. Taxpayers have the right to representation and advocacy. I know many of you represent taxpayers, and we want to make sure that taxpayers know that if they have an authorized representative, then we're happy to work with that person. They have the right to seek an authorized representative in disputes for any issues that they may encounter. And we also are partnering with low-income taxpayer clinics and community organizations to make sure that there are sufficient pro bono services available, and that the pro bono service providers have the information that they need to assist taxpayers. The right to finality. Nobody wants these issues to drag on forever. So taxpayers do have the right to know the timelines for audits, appeals, and refunds. Taxpayers have the right to know and understand how long a valid debt can be collected. So as far as the right to feedback and accountability, really, at the end of the day, we can't make a system that has the taxpayer at the center of it without hearing from taxpayers. So we want to hear from them, and taxpayers have the right to voice their concerns and provide feedback on their experiences. We're actively seeking taxpayer input. We're going to have more ways for surveys and feedback channels. And we're also looking to publish additional performance metrics and reports on our website to make sure that we're staying accountable to the people that we're serving. And then finally, the right to a fair and just tax system. At the end of the day, everybody wants a tax system that is fair, that is taxpayer-centered, and that is going to apply tax laws equitably and consistently. And that means that regardless of circumstances, taxpayers will be treated fairly with clear, transparent, and impartial enforcement of tax laws. And we're going to make sure that similar situations receive the same treatment and that rules are applied without favoritism. At the end of the day, it shouldn't matter who you are or who you know or how well connected you are. Everybody should be entitled to being, treated just as fairly and as equitably as anybody else. So the Taxpayer Bill of Rights is really meant to be that foundational document, the North Star that we are using that's going to inform our approach to customer interactions, training, policy decisions, continuous improvement efforts, technical decisions, program definitions, IT architecture, and more. Because really at the heart of it, it is a document that informs the culture of the organization at the comptroller, so that everything that we do, everybody that we talk to, all our decisions really are made with this document in mind. And we're really excited to roll this out to make sure that all taxpayers and all Marylanders can be treated with fairness and feel like that we're good partners in making sure that we are treating them the way that they're supposed to. My direct contact information is on the screen, and you can also see the email address and phone number for the Office of the Taxpayer Advocate in the event that anybody wants to contact me or contact my office or has a client or a colleague that needs to get a hold of us with an issue that they want to discuss. And with that, that was a quick overview of the Taxpayer Bill of Rights as well as our office, and I'm happy to take any questions. And I will stop sharing.
Thank you, Elena. That was very helpful. Bill, listeners, should they post questions in Dee just posted in the conferences IO.
Yep. Where you answered the polling questions earlier, there's also a feature where you can post questions. So if you have any questions for Elena, feel free to post them there. And in the meantime, Jeff, I think you might have a couple of your own. So.
I do. So yeah, as we wait for those to roll in, Elena, you mentioned early on that while there's a limited list of what your office officially does, there are a lot of things that you can still unofficially assist with, so that am I correct then in understanding that your office may not necessarily ultimately be the one to get resolution for an issue that's not on your list, but if someone's having trouble getting through through other avenues, that they can reach out to your office and then your office can put them on the right path? Is that fair to say?
Absolutely. So generally speaking, we're not the first stop, and that's not because we don't want to help, but it's just
Mhm.
because we have a small team. And so really our goal is to help people with long outstanding issues. If you have a refund that's been pending for many, many months and you're trying to figure out what's going on, or you submitted documents multiple times and still haven't heard back, we're the right place to have those discussions. But if there's other issues that pop up, something's urgent or time sensitive that you just need someone to look at, or you don't know who to contact to get to the right place, you are welcome to reach out to me. I may refer your case or refer your issue to another division, but that doesn't mean that I'm not, still interested in making sure that I'm following what's going on. So if you send me something, I'll get you to the right place. I'll make sure you get an answer. And if you are still not getting a resolution after trying to go through those official channels and trying to do, what you've been asked, then, you're welcome to reach out to me, and then we can brainstorm a path forward and some next steps.
Okay, great. And so just to reiterate for our members that the first stop should still be the practitioner's hotline, whether it's taxprohelp.com or the email address, or if it's calling them. But
Yep.
then for
And
clients who may have issues, or if a practitioner's having issues, then it, you're another resource.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
an example of that is I was getting some phone calls from people who were complaining about how many clicks it was taking to make an estimated tax payment. And so normally that wouldn't necessarily be an escalation that our office would deal with, but because I got so many of them, I was able to go to our IT and communications department, and we had a really productive conversation about how can we streamline that process so there's not so many clicks and it's not an option that's so difficult to find on our website. And then we were able to tackle it as a systemic challenge because it was something that was being encountered by many, many people. So sometimes it's good to hear from taxpayers if they're just frustrated with a process or they feel it's not working well. And even though it may not seem on its face to be something that would be appropriate for my team to tackle, if enough people are experiencing it as a problem, then I would love to get involved and see what we can do to make it better.
Yep. And are there things in place to track? So if there are issues that maybe someone's not touching base
Hmm.
specifically to say, here's a systemic problem, if
Hmm.
they don't know it is, but it sounds like you're able to track on your end that if you get 80 calls for the same issue, and a number I made up, I know there's
Yep. Yep. So we have a new system in place. It's the MyCom Connect system. So if you go onto our website, you can see some information about MyCom Connect. And this is our new customer relationship management tool that we're using where people, will call in, will input their information into an internal system, and I can track those. So some people may have called or may have emailed and gotten a case number, and that's really what that refers to. It's our internal tracking system so that if something is escalated or something is open or something is a work in progress, we can continue to monitor and track those. I also have access to the internal tool so I can see what types of escalations and requests are coming in for other divisions and units.
Mhm.
It is something that we're in the process of rolling out, so it's still a little bit early in that process. So not every one of our divisions or every one of our units might be in the system yet, but our overall plan is that we're transitioning to make sure that everyone at the comptroller is utilizing this new system so that those issues can be tracked and monitored, and we can have better data about the types of issues that recur.
Great. And actually, we just had a question come in on the on our chat from one of the listeners. Any plans for online fiduciary tax payments coming soon?
Yep. So we have a lot of improvements in the works right now. I know that you all are practitioners, so you probably have a lot of experience and a lot of feedback to provide on some of this modernization and how it's gone so far. So far, we've got corporate sales tax and withholding in our new system, which is people are paying through Tax Connect, and internally we refer to as RPE. And I know that the plan for moving the rest of our tax types into the new system is something that is currently ongoing. So as we're converting our data and converting these remaining tax types into the new system, more options and more kind of streamlined approaches to making sure that those payments and returns can be filed and are all present in one place should be something that's coming down the road very, very soon. And we'll put out some additional guidance as soon as we get closer to that point, and make sure that everybody has information about exactly what to expect. And then they have an opportunity to provide feedback on what they feel would be, something that would work for them as well.
Great. And then you had mentioned too that you'll be rolling out surveys for taxpayers, and that also leads to the question of how our members can help you out.
Yeah.
We would love to, as practitioners, be involved in those surveys, and especially since we're seeing a lot of the issues in multiple.
Yeah.
Is that a plan too?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you go to the comptroller's website, there is a subpage for the Office of the Taxpayer Advocate. And on the Taxpayer Advocate page, there's a button at the bottom, which I'll also drop in the chat once we've wrapped up here, to make sure that people know how to find us on the website, and then how to click that provide feedback button. I would love to hear from practitioners about the things that they feel are working or are not working well, because the only way that we can know to make these improvements and to solve these problems is to be able to hear directly from people who are encountering them. So I'll make sure that everybody has a link to provide feedback, and then we're also having some internal discussions about better ways to reach out proactively to people who might be encountering challenges. So we want to hear about things like, how do you like our new website? How are our systems working for you? What obstacles are people encountering in certain processes? Why are so many people filing paper returns still? What can we do to make that process easier and better for folks? So any information that you can provide would be great. And when you send something through that provide feedback button, it does go to the Office of the Taxpayer Advocate so that we can compile that into a final report.
Great. And actually, perfect timing for a good segue for our next question that came in. And this I know is a hot topic. I receive at least 2 calls a day concerning payments made on April 15th and that have not yet been cashed. How can your department help in getting envelopes opened?
Yep. So I get, more than 2 a day for the last couple of weeks about people that are complaining about their checks not being cashed. And what I've been telling people is that our processing teams are still working diligently to get those envelopes open and those payments processed. I have assured people that they won't encounter any penalties or interest so long as those envelopes were received timely. So when I speak to our revenue administration division, I am told that they are, working through the backlog, and that they should be done in the next 2 to 3 weeks, and to let people know that they can call in and check on the status about, around that time. So what I do when I get those phone calls is I go to other divisions, I see if I can get timelines, make sure that they know that these are concerns that people are sharing. And then I've also looped in our executive team, so the executive team is aware. Once we're through this, I think, it's always prudent also to have a debrief. What can we do differently next year? And we're having the discussion of, I understand that we are backlogged in opening these envelopes and processing these payments this year, but why are we getting so many paper checks? What is preventing people from being, eager to submit these payments digitally? And making sure that we can address any challenges that they're having. Is the system hard to use? Are the options not intuitive? What can we do to make this more seamless and more intuitive and easier for people, so that next year we don't have to, have staff coming in and volunteering to assist the processing team to open envelopes for paper payments?
Yeah, thank you. And I know that there have been similar issues in the past with the direct withdrawal sometimes not being taken out timely. And my understanding is that whatever issues were there was more of a Treasury, the Maryland Treasury Department, rather than the
Yes. Sometimes there's, layers of things that, that could be in play. I think that generally speaking, an electronic payment is faster and more secure,
yeah.
and it happens more predictably. So I would always encourage somebody to take advantage of an electronic payment. If there is an electronic payment that somebody makes that isn't properly debited at the time that they expected that it was, I think that's a good time to reach out to, the comptroller's office, or reach out to my office. Sometimes what happens is there's an issue with the return not properly posting, and our workflow has it to where a payment won't post until the return posts first. So there may be, something that needs a manual review that is suspended or, needs additional verification. And then the debit will occur once that return issue is resolved. But that's a good opportunity for somebody to reach out and be like, hey, what happened? The debit never occurred. We want to confirm that return, wasn't rejected and that everything is good to go.
Right. Yeah, definitely. And then, so if it looks like there was a mistake made, whether processing a return or a payment or something that appears to be a mistake that was possibly made at the comptroller's office or on your end, not the client or taxpayer's end, what would be the best course of action in that?
Yep. So I would always encourage people to be mindful of deadlines. I know that, nobody wants to submit an appeal for something that should be an easy fix, but at the same time, if something that should be an easy fix, you don't want to get caught up in a delay and then miss an opportunity to file a timely appeal and have the right to go to tax court if that's something that you need to avail yourself of. So step number one, I would say, you've received a tax computation notice with appeal rights, just to be super mindful that there is a limited amount of time to file those appeals and be heard in court. So to, preserve your rights, make sure that that is something that you are doing, but also, just to make sure that you are aware of exactly what went wrong. I think that's something that I see a lot of is we were, as the comptroller's office, really committed to improving the process for making sure that people understand what went wrong, making sure that they have information about really what's going on, because you can't fix a problem if you don't know what the problem is. And so just shoring up our partnership, making sure that we are good partners to the public and to practitioners, providing them good information, timely information that is relevant to the concerns that they have. And if there are opportunities to improve our notices, for example, so that when people get that letter, they know what it is we want from them and what it is that, potentially went wrong. If a payment was misapplied or if there is an additional charge for something, where did that come from? And kind of what additional information can they provide to get this resolved timely? And so I think that that goes back to the question that you asked just a minute ago, is from the practitioner's side, what can be done is if you see good opportunities to fix a notice or to be clearer, to fix a workflow, or our people need additional training, let me know so that I can work internally to make sure that our people are well informed and knowledgeable and that the communications that go out make sense so that these problems can be fixed. And then just to make sure that you are also, preserving your appeal rights so that you can go through the hearings and appeals process if it gets to that point. And then if you are running into obstacles getting to the right person for those things that should be easy fixes, reach out to me and let me know, and I'll make sure that that gets resolved.
Okay, great. And then and we absolutely appreciate all the efforts to really work with us, work with taxpayers to make improvements wherever they can be made. And I understand, obviously, some of the things will just kind of be behind the scenes, but as things are being improved and updated, how can practitioners or taxpayers be made aware of what's being updated and what new rule changes, law changes,
Yeah.
etc.
So I know that this is really timely this year, especially with all the changes that came in through the General Assembly's new tax law changes. So, just as a reminder, we didn't create the changes, we didn't draft the laws, but we are here to fairly, and transparently administer the laws that were put into place. There is a new website that's being rolled out. It should be linked on the homepage of our of the Maryland Comptroller website with new law changes, so that as there's new information, new guidance published on things like the data tax and other things, people should have access to that, as quickly as possible. We also are rolling out a series of webinars that are upcoming, so that information should be posted soon if it hasn't already been circulated, so that if you do have an opportunity to sit through one of these webinars to learn, what's changing, what do you need to know, what additional information can we provide so that you can better inform your clients and your customers. we're really working to make sure that we're sharing that as quickly as possible so that you can share it with your clients and your constituents as quickly as you possibly can as well. And if there is, the need for something that you don't see or that you don't feel like you're getting timely, then, certainly I'm the right spot for that. Reach out to me and let me know, hey, we need, more on, whatever topic it is. And I'm happy to work internally to make sure that that information is pushed out.
Okay, great. Thank you. Another question came through. Current guidance on attaching PDF of K-1s with the pass-through entity tax in addition to the e-file format, yes or no? I think that means, so if they're preparing the individual return and there's a lot of the software companies have the ability to input a K-1 that'll come over as part of the e-filing, but there's also the attachment of the PDF of the actual K-1. I think there's been a little bit of miscommunication or inconsistency
Yeah.
in whether or not that should be attached. Do you have any guidance on that?
Yeah, so what I think that, would make sense here is to make sure that I understand the issue. It sounds like if people don't feel like they should have to submit twice what they've already included with their filing. And I'm happy to have a conversation if that member who submitted the question wants to, give me a call or shoot me an email offline, just to make sure that I've got that concern correct. I agree that people should only have to submit information once, and that should be as streamlined as possible. If that is something that we can access on our end without having, more hoops for people to jump through, I definitely think that that is something that we should strive for. Whether or not that is a technological limitation on our end is maybe a different question. We can aspire to do things really well, but sometimes we are limited to what our systems will accommodate. So, I would suggest that that person send me an email, and then we can brainstorm whether or not there are ways to improve that process, or if it really is just an internal training conversation about making sure that our people know where to look for the information that should already be present.
Great, thank you. And then another one that came in. Actually, this one I've always kind of shaken my head at as well, and it would also apply to the actual corporate return. But any chance of getting the 511 instructions updated to make sense? 0% apportionment is entered as 0.00001, and 100% is entered as 99999, which a lot of software treats as 0.9999.
Yeah, no, and we've had that conversation internally. That was one of those early things that I ran across when I came in as taxpayer advocate. I was like, this doesn't make any sense. 0.0001% of a number is still a number that's not zero.
Right.
So, the reason that that limitation existed is because in our legacy software is such an old piece of software still running on COBOL that it just can't handle binary. Zeros and ones are tough for it to process. But as we move it into this new modernized system, then that issue should resolve, and we should be able to, have these, clearer calculations. So my recommendation is if you have, especially these large businesses with large numbers where 0.0001% is still something that's not insignificant, call me. We'll make sure we can get it resolved. Again, taxpayers have the right to pay no more than the tax that they legally owe. So, making sure that those calculations are correct is really fundamental. And then I'll continue to work with our teams. So as we transition into this new system, we, are always looking to update the instructions. The instructions, if they don't make sense, they should make sense. They should be written in plain English where everybody can understand them, and the calculation should be straightforward. So if you or your constituents or anybody on the call has recommendations on the type of information that they want to see in any specific instructions, please send them to me, and I will work with our forms teams to make sure that that information gets updated.
Great. And now here's another one that another really good one. We went around in circles at extension time on this. It would be helpful to get some clarity as to whether or not the EL 101B is needed to release an extension for Maryland.
I don't know the answer off the top of my head, but I
Yeah.
can find out. So that if you can email me that question, I did share the my email address directly in the slides, and I'm also happy to pop it into the chat.
And actually, that reminded me of a question that I've always had, that the business extensions with a zero balance due still need to be filed. And sometimes it's not a big deal, it just goes along with the e-filing, but is that statutory or is that something that could be changed by the comptroller's office to just have an automatic extension if you file a federal extension?
I will find out and I will
Yeah, that'd
report
be
back.
good. Yeah.
Yeah,
I would be interested in having that changed. It's
no, for
really
sure.
just one more thing people have to deal with.
Yeah, we want to make tax filing as easy and as, streamlined as possible. And then, but we also still needed to work with our systems. So I'll find out which, kind of what the obstacle is with that do some brainstorming about how to make that process better.
Okay. And then a follow up on the question about the PDFs. So back to the question of attaching K1s to individual returns for K1s with PTET. Do you recommend attaching the K1s if they input the K1 info into the software? And I think that, again, you were going to get back on that. So I guess it's more of, in the meantime, it should.
Yeah. So if you have specific issues or specific questions, or even a specific example where you thought that something should have been easy and straightforward, but you ran into challenges in working with our staff, I would love to see those examples. And so I can compile those into, a document and then present it as a systemic challenge. Um, you know, I know that I've gotten a lot of feedback from taxpayers that if the information is present and visible in our system, they don't feel like we should be reaching out for additional copies or denying credits that we could easily verify internally. Sometimes what happens is our systems just aren't modern enough to pick up that information in an automated way. So the process that is set up is set up to make sure that we are capturing the information without having to do manual work on, a million returns.
Well,
So, any challenges that people are encountering, I think at this point, because we are in the process of modernizing and moving into this new system, would be really, really helpful to inform, those changes, what our new system needs to be able to do and accommodate. And I'll have that conversation with our technology and processing teams.
okay, great. And another one came in. I know this has been a hot topic as well on our listserv, or I guess it's not called listserv now, but the tax communities. Does Elena's department deal with ProConnect also? If so, why can't the user accounts show everything for a client? It only shows what the user has filed.
Yeah, we've had those conversations recently, and one of the challenges is, payments only show up if you put it through that platform, and you can't see the payments that come in through other platforms. And I think that is a good example of, the type of feedback that will help us make those improvements. So as we're upgrading and as we're managing those systems, to know, we want to be able to see a full payment history. We want to see a full filing history. We want to see the notices that you've issued out or pushed out. What is possible versus what is present right now, and making sure that we are taking advantage of the, possibilities where something could be easier for the practitioner community or the taxpayer community to manage. And I've gotten that feedback from other people as well. So it definitely is in the works. And one of the opportunities that I have as taxpayer advocate is to issue an annual report about the challenges that are faced, the taxpayers are facing, and that practitioners are facing across the state. So, and this is the type of information that I would use to be able to compile my report of challenges, so that we could put together an action plan and make those improvements for everybody.
Thank you. And then actually, as you're working on everything, are you looking to other states for best practices? I know that, especially now that I'm on the private side, there are some states that are a lot easier to deal with. Actually, just this this morning, I had something from Indiana saying there's a notice in your Indiana portal. So I just can go in and look at it, and if something needs to be addressed, can just upload everything. So that'd be an example of something that, Maryland could aspire to. Do you have, and you don't have to say which states, but do you have
No,
specific states on your radar that
yeah,
you're
no,
looking at?
we have robust relationships with other states, and I know that, I'm really involved personally in the Federation of Tax Administrators. So we work with FTA. I talked to the taxpayer advocate from Oregon just yesterday. I've spoken, we're working on a couple of projects for, many different things with people from other states. So you know, we're all communicating with other folks in similar capacities, and we really appreciate the opportunity to learn from and benefit from what other states' experiences are. Just as a quick example, it's a quick lighthearted example. The taxpayer advocate in Oregon shared a story yesterday on a call that when she made this language on her webpage simpler, she got more phone calls because it was optimized for AI to be able to pull back, like, who can help you in Oregon with a tax problem, and because her page was so much simpler and in plain English, that it popped back better results. So that was an interesting conversation that would not have popped in my head if I hadn't had that conversation with her. So, having these relationships across borders, I think really helps us to be able to pull in those best practices, and is something we're pretty good at taking advantage of.
Yeah. I think that's all the questions that have oh, no, just got another one. There was a time that the comptroller's uh, taxpayer advocate help office, I think, well, it says TA, I think it's taxpayer advocate, but I'm not positive. Help office would generate the secure message. Now they're saying add hashtag secure hashtag to the subject and it will be fine. That makes us very nervous to originate emails with private information.
Sure. So I understand that, nobody wants to, have a data breach or to put any taxpayer information at risk. Our internal protocol for sending out secured encrypted messages is to put hashtag secure hashtag in the subject line of the message. And the way that works for us is if I send someone a secure message and they respond, it's also encrypted. It's and encrypted so when they send it back to me, that information is secure. Having said that, I am open to feedback about better ways to do things. If there is a way to, have a data exchange that is, not making people nervous, we certainly, are open to possibilities in making those improvements. And then we can also explore ways that people can submit their documents securely, either through our CRM, Tax Connect Now, or other platforms. But I've gotten that feedback as well, and I hear you with, nobody wants to, have a typo and then have the information exposed that shouldn't be exposed. So whatever I can do to, further that initiative, let me know. And if somebody's got a specific, piece of information that they just aren't comfortable sharing, we can also arrange to have somebody drop it off at a branch office that's convenient to them and have it, couriered into the correct office if that's something that would work better.
Okay, great. Thank you. And actually, there was a question that came in earlier that I inadvertently overlooked, but it's a good one. What tax reference material do you recommend for taxpayers and retired persons interested in improving tax planning? So I guess where if they're looking at things for Maryland specific, that
Yeah, I think that, the first place to start is always, with guidance that's published on our website. I know that Maryland has been pretty good about having administrative releases and tax practice tips and things like this. Having said that, I know that we're in the process of doing a lot of updates on that material. So, once that information is updated, I would recommend going through and making sure that, people are aware of, the guidance that's already been pushed out. I know that, it is a lot to go through on our website, and we just actually updated our website, so it should be a little bit easier to navigate. It's a little bit more of a knowledge-based approach. So if you go in and type in the search bar, a key phrase, all of the hits from all of the, different places that you can find it on our website pop up. So I would encourage people to just start at the website and see what they find. And if they have additional questions or feedback, to submit feedback so that we can, make further improvements and ensure that the information that they're looking for is provided.
Okay, thank you. A few more questions have come in. I want to be respectful of your time, though, and really appreciate your time here today. So, for anyone who posted a question that was not addressed here today, we will follow up with Elena and we can get back to you. I'll work with Bill and Dee on that to make sure that all the questions are ultimately answered.
Very good. And just as a quick a PS, if anybody needs to get a hold of me directly, my email address is efolks, FOWLKES, @marylandtaxes.gov. And anyone who needs to reach the Office of the Taxpayer Advocate can send an email to taxpayeradvocate@marylandtaxes.gov or call 410-260-6222.
All right. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Elena. Thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule to be with us today. Terrific information from start to finish. And Jeff, thanks much for stepping in as moderator and steering the conversation. Much appreciated there. And thanks to all of you as well for being here. We'll be sending a follow-up email with links to slides, other resources. So be on the lookout for that within the next day or two. And enjoy the rest of your day, everyone, and your week and the long holiday weekend next week. Have a good one. A great afternoon to all of you. Thanks again for joining us today.